How you doing? Happy Sunday evening. It's gotten warmer again. It's 86. They say we're going to have like 16 or 17 days of hot days. The uh, air quality index is moderate, which means it's above 50 by a little bit. So I'm doing this in the evening when it's a little better. And I did manage to find a movie house that was fairly isolated and watched in 4DX Cruise's latest adventure movie, Mission Impossible, The Reckoning, Part 1, I think it is, or Part A. And when you sit in those chairs and stuff like that, that alone is pretty exciting. But the movie goes on, and I didn't notice it until I got to get out. It's like 3 hours, but I recommend it to anybody. Holly was with me, so at least in our family, the guy and the gal both liked it. So that's the end of my recommendations. Now, in the category of how could he go to Yale, clerk in the Supreme Court, apparently have an IQ, and be so bad in public policy? And apparently, Senator Cruz, I know it comes as a surprise that I mentioned his name in connection with not being up to the task, but Senator Cruz, who also was a silent participant and vocal participant in the insurrection on January the 6th, he has taken it upon himself to do a movie review as well. And he's talking about the Barbie movie. And apparently I haven't seen the movie, there's a map in the movie, and it's all kind of a joke map. And because the line is drawn in such a way with regard to China that he claims that they're basically a pawn of Russia. Do you believe this guy? He has too much time on his hands. And he doesn't cut a jaunting figure like he once did, like when he was running for president. So it sort of submerged him. I mean, if you're out of form with, I don't know what your soul is about, or maybe this is his soul, you know. We get to see this caricature of a senator say stupid and do wrong things. Now, back when I was a student at Columbia, there were lots of coverage, radio and TV and stuff like that. And at one time or other, people who were at the university, as I was, would end up being interviewed by somebody else. And I went to I went to a studio where they were hosting those who were at Columbia and what they had to say about it. And so I went to that. I don't remember saying anything. I know that's unusual. And when I left, I was going to either walk across town and take the west side, the Broadway subway up to Columbia. And this guy offered to give us a lift. So we didn't know him, but he seemed fine. And we all piled into his car. As we're driving along, he said, you know, that's what they're doing. They're teaching our children to live with vermin. We immediately thought we had chosen the wrong car. But he went on. And he was talking about Mickey Mouse and the fact that Mickey Mouse was a character in a cartoon and was therefore vermin. We were being taught to normalize and get along with mice. Swear to God. So I think that our boy Cruz is in the same category as that kind man who helped us get back up to the west side and to Columbia, but had a bizarre idea of what cartoons were about. I was pleased to hear Dick Gephardt talk about how the No Labels crew is really about nothing, but they want people who they are convincing to protest both Trump and Biden to go with a No Labels candidate, someone who they don't know who it would be. They don't know what his positions would be. And I guess if he had no labels, he couldn't run unless he had nothing to say. And they say this as if it's a neutral thing, but what Dick Gephardt, who is both a minority and majority leader in the House while I was working on the Hill, he said, this is not going to stand. We can't have this. He said, by what process are these people going to be chosen? He didn't say it, but who would be the president and who the vice president? Would a Democrat be their presidential candidate or the Republican? And The biggest lie, of course, which Dick has taken straight on, is he paid for a poll out of his own piggy bank, and he found that in battleground states that this would adversely affect Biden, not Trump. And in the battleground states where the game remains the electors to the Electoral College, this would give Trump an edge, and perhaps a convincing enough edge, to become president again. And that's the whole story. That's what it's all about. And I'm all in with Dick Gephardt. When I was running for Congress a million years ago, he and his wife were at a function that I was attending, but we ran into each other in the street. And he, a member of Congress, took me under his wing and introduced me around to the people and so forth. In other words, he's always been a gentleman. And yes, I know, treating members is a good idea when you're seeking their support for your positions in the caucus. But still, as it turned out, I didn't win the congressional race, so he extended me these courtesies without knowing what would happen in a district that was strongly Republican and had a Republican incumbent. So I've always admired Dick Gephardt, and I spent a lot of time with him when I was on the Hill during the impeachment mess, that is of President Clinton. And he had the members who had some contribution to make in deciding how to handle that impeachment, and some staff. And I was special counsel on this issue. And so I was among the staffers who were there. And I saw how he regulated a meeting. It was very impressive. So he ran for president at one point. Couldn't get enough support in the primary. And now he continues to work the issues he cares about. And this one is, how about fair elections? How about elections that make sense? If people are going to cheat, don't. Throw your hat in the ring in either Republican or Democratic primary and win there or lose. That's it. And until we decide we can find some way to change how we do these elections, that's how you do it. In Israel, you may have noticed that the people are on the streets in large numbers because the government wants to stop the courts from reviewing decisions by the parliament. And the people are against that. And Netanyahu is trying to push this through for a variety of reasons. The people don't want to have anything to do with it. And Netanyahu had, it sounds like AFib, atrial fibrillation. Anyhow, a regular heartbeat. And he went to the hospital. And they put a pacemaker in, which is one of the things you can do for an irregular heartbeat. And of course, Netanyahu remains unreconstructed about his position. And on Monday, they're going to vote on it. And we'll see what the people are going to do, because thousands were protesting, stayed overnight. I think there's been 6 days of these things. And the parliament only has a 4-vote majority for those members of parliament who think they should eliminate or seriously limit the ability of the Supreme Court to review what the parliament does. Interesting problem. They want to eliminate the reasonableness test, which is one of the elements of what the court now can do when it's reviewing actions and statutes and so forth. Finally, what are the chances that Jack Smith has the resources to fight Trump into the end game? Well, he has anywhere, as nobody's sure, I think, from 40 to 60 staffers, prosecutors, paralegals, everything else. And we expect he's going to spend $25 million in the year. And that's a pretty sizable purse to use as a resource. And I have said that one of the 3 parts that one has to deal with for every case, civil or criminal, is 1, do you have a cause of action? or a defense? Number one. Number two, do you have the evidence to prove, say, your defense or the frivolousness of the claim? And that, even if it's not required. But the last one is the most troubling one, which is, do you have the resources to fight this? I remember reading about Napoleon, concerned about having gunpowder for the fight, and who was operating the cannons, and were they in position. Those are the things that make the difference to outcome, and it's similar and different in a court case. And to the extent that funds matter, and used smartly, he's got a decent budget. So we have power in the engine room. Right now, the vectors are going in the right direction, that is against Trump. We have Republicans making fools of themselves, showing, quote, porn at hearings because the son of the president apparently slept with some girl, woman, person, prostitute, and they think it's a big deal. Why don't they just turn to their own standard bearer? He did it without doubt, and he's spent a fair amount of hush money to keep it quiet. So what is wrong with these guys? The next week could bring us the next indictment, although it sounds like Smith in the DC case, whatever he's bringing, that there are other witnesses he wants to talk to before he closes up shop. Now, it's also possible he won't bring an indictment, and we'll take down our scabbards and pull out our long knives and say, what the hell happened to you? Did Sleepy Garland finally find a way to get in the way of moving forward with more indictments? Well, I hope that's not going to happen, and presently that's not a concern except as a hypothetical. But we have seen how politicians, and I include Garland as a politician in this category, we have seen how politicians can find the damnedest, stupidest, amoral, immoral, illegal, unconstitutional act to follow. But I don't think anybody else but our boy Cruz is going to be looking at maps and cartoons to decide whether or not they're being influenced by the Chinese. Crazy. Okay, so that's it. I'm on my marvelous path, and from the Cathedral of Trees on a Sunday, I say good evening, and I hope and expect to talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.